Jess clutched the worn photograph tighter, her knuckles bone-white against the faded image. Ben, her half-brother, smiled back at her, a phantom from a life she craved, a life far from the suffocating darkness that had become her reality back home. She was running, yes, but towards a glimmer of hope, a chance at redemption. Paris. The City of Lights, they called it. Maybe, just maybe, it could illuminate the shadowed corners of her soul. The Greyhound bus rumbled through the night, a metal cocoon carrying her away from the wreckage of her past. Each mile was a breath, each passing town a weight lifted from her chest. Sleep was impossible, not with the ghosts of her mistakes clawing at the edges of her mind. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to forget, to be someone new, someone better. Dawn broke as the bus sputtered into the outskirts of Paris. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city into an impressionist painting of greys and blues. Jess felt a tremor of fear course through her. This city, vast and unknown, felt like stepping off the edge of a cliff. But there was no turning back. Her old life was gone, consumed by the flames of her mistakes. Paris was her only chance, her last hope. With a shaky breath, Jess stepped off the bus and into the Parisian drizzle. The air hung heavy with the scent of rain and coffee, a strange comfort in this unfamiliar world. Above her, the Eiffel Tower pierced the overcast sky, a beacon of promise. She clutched her meager bag closer, a silent prayer escaping her lips. "Let me be good enough," she thought. "Let me deserve this." The address Ben had given her led to a stately Haussmann building in the Marais, its elegance a stark contrast to the gritty bus station. Wrought iron balconies adorned the facade, each window a dark, watchful eye. The air hummed with a strange energy, a discordant note in the Parisian symphony. Jess hesitated, a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. She found Ben's apartment on the 4th floor, the door marked with a simple brass plaque, B. Moreau. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the handle. She expected resistance, a lock to pick or a chain to break. Instead, the door swung open with a low groan, as if inviting her into its secrets. A chill swept over Jess, chasing away the Parisian warmth. Something was wrong. The apartment was immaculate, decorated in Ben's signature minimalist style. Black leather furniture gleamed under the dim light filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with titles in languages Jess couldn't decipher. It was Ben's space, filled with his presence, yet he was undeniably absent. Every surface was undisturbed, every object perfectly placed. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Jess called out Ben's name, her voice echoing in the unsettling silence. The only response was the distant hum of traffic from the street below. Panic clawed at her throat, a cold dread seeping into her bones. This wasn't the reunion she had envisioned. This wasn't Ben. Where was he? What had happened? Days bled into nights, each hour an agonizing eternity. The police were of little help, their faces etched with the same jaded indifference Jess had encountered countless times before. Another missing person in a city that swallowed souls whole. She haunted Ben's apartment, searching for clues, for any trace of her brother. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rhythmic tick of a vintage clock on the mantelpiece. She called Ben's phone repeatedly, the insistent ringing a hollow counterpoint to the emptiness surrounding her. Each unanswered call chipped away at her hope, replacing it with a gnawing fear. Had he abandoned her? The thought sent a sharp pang through her chest, a cruel echo of past betrayals. No, she told herself, Ben wouldn't do that. He was her blood, her last connection to a life she desperately wanted to forget. The building itself seemed to press in on her, its silence heavy with unspoken secrets. Jess wandered the dimly lit hallways, her footsteps echoing on the marble floors. She studied the other apartment doors, each one a barrier concealing the lives of strangers. Who were they, these people who shared this building, this city, with the brother she couldn't find? Were they friends or foes? Allies or enemies in her desperate search for answers? One evening, as the last rays of sunlight painted the Parisian rooftops in hues of gold and crimson, Jess noticed a faint sound coming from the apartment across the hall. It was a muffled sob, a sound of utter despair that resonated deep within her soul. It was a sound she knew all too well, a sound that spoke of loss and loneliness. And in that moment, Jess knew she wasn't alone in this building, in this labyrinth of secrets. The other residents of the building were an eclectic mix of Parisian archetypes. Madame Dubois, the aging opera singer on the floor below, with her kohl-rimmed eyes and tales of past glories. Her voice, once a powerful instrument, was now a tremulous echo of its former self, much like the grandeur of the building itself. Monsieur Pierre, the reclusive writer who lived above, his days spent hunched over his typewriter, the clack-clack of the keys, the soundtrack to Jess's growing anxiety. There was also Sophie, a young art student with haunted eyes and a nervous habit of twisting her silver ring. She moved with a dancer's grace, her movements fluid and elegant, yet there was a fragility about her, a sense of something broken just beneath the surface. Sophie reminded Jess of herself, a reflection of the vulnerability she tried so hard to conceal. Jess began to suspect that each of them held a piece of the puzzle, their lives intertwined with Ben's disappearance in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Their initial friendliness soon gave way to guarded silences and averted gazes. They offered her platitudes and empty reassurances, their words laced with a subtle undercurrent of warning. It was as if they knew something, some truth they were too afraid to speak. The building itself became a character in her unfolding nightmare. The elevator creaked and groaned like a living thing, its movements erratic and unpredictable. The ornate ironwork on the balconies seemed to twist and writhe in the shadows, forming menacing shapes that sent shivers down her spine. Even the air itself felt different, heavy with secrets and the weight of countless unseen eyes.